All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are going straight ahead with our newspaper review and skipping business, and of course focusing later in our conversation segment on the appropriation bill for 2022. Time for newspaper review now.
And let me quickly introduce our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoebe.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning.
I'm sure you're wondering why I'm smiling, because we have enough time today to do your review.
Yes, provided you allow it.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a variety of newspapers. I don't know, something is delaying the arrival of the papers. So we have the national economy and also the leadership. So, Claire, leadership has a busier front page, I believe.
Indeed. And the lead story on the front page is, says, federal government secretly raises electricity tariff. And the details of that on page 4. Federal government, FG, secretly raises electricity tariff. Now, adjustment inevitable as government can no longer sustain subsidy payment. That's one of the riders. And it's unfortunate and deceitful. That's also consumers' reactions. And the big story, of course, for today is illustrated by the picture story you're seeing right there. And that's, of course, Mr. President presenting the 2022 draft appropriation bill to the joint session of the National Assembly in Abuja yesterday. And part of that bill says you can borrow to fund 2022 budget, NASTEL's PMB. Expert warn against rising debt. It's also on the front page. Now, we have other stories. 206 kidnapped victims regained freedom in Zamfara and Kaduna. Details of that on page 4. Court jails Mainat's son, Faisal, 14 years, also on page 6. And access to malaria vaccine will save 264,000 children annually, according to experts. So that's how we read the leadership front page today, Friday. Kingsley.
All right, so we also have the national economy, and above the nameplate says Nigeria projects 4.2% GDP growth rate for 2022, plans new borrowing to finance budget deficit next year. And the list story says climate change threatens Nigeria's $269 billion ocean resources. And below the photograph says IPMAN advises federal government to remove petrol subsidy. BOI, that's Bank of Industry, becomes signatory to UN responsible banking principles. Bayo.
Thank you. Let's start with the talk of the nation now, which is the 2022 budget. President Muhammadu Buhari presented estimates of 2022 budget to the joint session of the National Assembly yesterday. The expenditure therein is put at 16.39 trillion, while revenue is projected at 10.13 trillion. There is a built-in deficit of 3.6 trillion. Benchmark for crude production is set at $57, while daily crude production is put at 1.88 million barrels a day. Exchange rate to the dollar is put at 410 naira 15 kobo. Meanwhile, inflation is also projected to be about 13%. Domestic growth is estimated to be about 4.2%. The president observed that Nigerians are right to be worried about government's borrowing and the resultant debt. He, however, explained that such borrowing were required to help in bringing the country first out of recession and then boosting the economy. He added that the country's debt profile is still within sustainable level. Earlier, some couple of days ago, the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, had actually indicated that Nigeria's borrowing is about 23% of gross domestic product. In Anambra, 18 candidates of 18 political parties are to contest the November 6 governorship election. The list was published by Independent National Electoral Commission at Oka yesterday, and it bears the signature of Barrister Festus Okoye, the National Commissioner for INEC Information and Education. This forecloses litigations involving disqualifying, confirming, and conflicting court decisions by even court of concurrent jurisdiction. Some candidates of the major political parties are now confirmed. There are 18 male governorship candidates, but 7 contestants have female deputy co-contestants. The final register of the voters for Anambra State indicate that there are 2,525,471 eligible voters. Copies were distributed to the 18 contesting political parties. Independent National Electoral Commission is determined to conduct a credible election and is therefore to hold an emergency consultative meeting with leaderships of all registered political parties later today. In Anambra, Governor Willie Obiano of Anambra says President Muhammadu Buhari is not in support of emergency rule in Anambra. After a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari, Governor Obiano says that the president assures him that his interest is in the free, fair, and credible election on November 6th in Anambra. The governor of Anambra faulted the Attorney General of the Federation, saying some states were facing greater insecurity, yet emergency rule had not been declared. He said that Anambra according to him, is the safest state in Nigeria for the 7 years that he has been in charge. He said this unfortunate killing which has happened occurred in 2 weeks, just 2 weeks back, and they are by invaders who are from outside Anambra State. He assured, we are going to deal with them. We are getting equipment and boots on ground. In 2 weeks, everything will be over. There's nothing to contemplate a state of emergency over. There is a scandal brewing up in the University of Benin. A lecturer in the English department has been suspended for rape. The senior lecturer is alleged to have raped a female final year student. The student said that the lecturer allegedly was pleading for forgiveness for regretting his action, which content went viral on the social media. The Punch reports that the alleged crime occurred on October 5th. The 400-level student went to the lecturer's office to submit her final project, where she was allegedly raped and allegedly locked up in the office for several hours. The 400-level student was able to contact a friend who, with Uniben security operative, rescued her. The English lecturer was allegedly arrested and taken to the university administration for questioning. Meanwhile, following the preliminary report, the lecturer has been queried and placed on interdiction. Spokesman for the university, Dr. Benedicta Ehanire, says, considering the gravity and legal issues involved, the matter has been referred to the police for further investigation. The university assures all staff, students, parents, and all stakeholders that the cause of justice will be served.
Yeah, that's a good development in terms of the reaction by the school authorities. It isn't just referring the matter. I think he has been handed over to the police, and we expect that prosecution will follow swiftly so that the cause of justice is served. Sometimes you have to ask yourself the mental state of the perpetrators of these sexual offenses.
Yes, precisely.
You have to ask.
Precisely my thoughts. I mean, how could you? Exactly. It's the 400-level student enters your office to submit, her project, and all you could do is to, lock her in and I mean.
Violate her. I mean, it's let's see. Let's keep track of it.
Yes, we will keep track of it and make sure that at least it's another example. It's following the footsteps of, you remember the professor of accountancy who was held accountable in Benin, University of Ife.
No, that one was sexual harassment. That's an MBA student. There was a similar case was that of a student or a candidate who was seeking admission at the University of Lagos.
Yes.
She was a teenager at the time. I'm not quite sure how that story ended.
Yes.
If you remember that?
Yes. The lecturer who was involved was not even a full-time lecturer.
He was an auxiliary.
Yes, he was
staff.
interdicted. Eventually, I think he's been handed over to the police. And Lagos State has a very strong anti-rape legal system, and he's going through that process. Meanwhile, in Zamfara State,
I wonder what happened to the register. You know, a register was supposed to have been opened.
There is a register.
Yes.
There is a register. I think part of what we need, let the police develop their case file, and this is not an offense simply on the campus. Rape is a state offense, and so Edo State has a new Attorney General. So the state government, through the office of the Attorney General or the DPP, takes it up swiftly and let the cause of justice be served.
I was going to talk about Zamfara. 187 kidnapped victims have been freed by the Zamfara Police Command.
Yes.
Sadly, the 52 of them look very emaciated because they were not having food. They were forced to eat grass to survive. One of the victims said 17 other victims of the kidnap had died as a result of starvation. It will be recalled that there has been pressure on the kidnappers in Zamfara and Katsina, as well as Kebbi State and Sokoto State. Apparently, they are in short supply of food, and it is telling. The secretary to the Zamfara State government, Kabiru Balarabis, who received the rescued victims, says government will continue to put pressure on bandits until they finally give up. The commissioner of police also said that it was quite difficult, but they were able to get to the kidnappers then. Nigerian Railway Corporation has reported that some coaches were burned at a railway station. The Kwara State Fire Services said that they had to rush there and for the fire about 5:17 p.m. And of the 15 coaches, only 2 of the coaches were burned. The superintendent in charge of the railway station, Mr. Taiwo, says that hoodlums he described as hemp smokers were the cause of the fire. The coaches have been abandoned for several years. They were actually not in use. But you see, Offa is the second urban city in Kwara State. You recall April 5th, armed robbery there, and increasingly there is increase in crime rate in that area. And this is because there are so many young men there who, unfortunately, are beginning to lend themselves to this criminality. The latest is these Indian home smokers who have said the coaches are ablaze.
Unfortunately. Bayo, is that all? I was just, that's all. Ordinarily, you would have, I thought you were going to start your review this morning by telling us about the outcome of the matches that were played yesterday.
Well,
the football matches.
we lost.
Oh, yeah.
We lost 1-0. And I just...
Where did we lose?
We lost to Central African
I didn't say to whom. Where did we lose?
We lost in Lagos.
At home?
Yes.
Tesla Balogun Stadium?
Yes.
1-0.
Yes.
To Central African Republic.
The first...
And we still have the... see, this is clear. Yeah. This is part of the issue. I don't know how we respond to the performance of our national team. You know, we've discussed this on Good Morning Nigeria during the newspaper review segment. If you have a technical advisor or a team manager or a coach who is not delivering results, what do you do with him?
Well, you know, Kingsley and Bayo, I think that indeed the boys didn't play their best. They weren't in their best form, you know, because I watched the tail end of the match, even where the only goal was scored. But we take solace in the history of the Super Eagles not doing well at home usually and going out to
do well.
Well,
they are due to play a return leg with the same Central African Republic in a day or two. Let's see. Let's hope they'll do it. But if you had watched the match, the first portion of the match, Nigeria dominated.
Without a goal. Dominated without a goal.
They dominated without a goal. They were playing purely defensive. When Nigeria came back in the second half, the pressure was still on them. But out of complacency, everybody went forward up to the half line, tried to put pressure and get the goal. And a swift, fast-footed attacker was able to beat 2 of our defenders.
Well, we have 6 points, topping the group.
Well, that's fine. But you see, the same last night.
Yes.
If you watch the second semi-final of the UEFA Nations League, Belgium against France, I don't know whether you watched that match. Belgium were leading 2-0. Fantastic goals from Belgium, one by Carrasco, the other by Romelu Lukaku. 2-0, halftime. The French team came back, and what would you expect? I mean, the guys knew that they were pressed. They were pressured. Karim Benzema reduced the tally. Yes. And then, of course, Mbappe leveled. Yes. And on the death, 98th minute, the French took the match. So what are we saying?
Gentlemen, there's pressure on me to end this.
Before we go, since we're talking about the Super Eagles, they used to be called the Green Eagles.
Yes.
Nigeria lost one of its finest strikers in the past, Sonny Oyarikwa.
Yes.
Oyarikwa was a policeman. He played for the police machine. He retired as an assistant commissioner of police. He was, until Thompson Usiye, Nigeria's leading scorer. At the All-Africa Games in Lagos, he was the leading scorer in that tournament. Nigeria won a gold medal in that tournament.
Yes.
And of course, the team of the Green Eagles at the time was captained by Victor Odua, who used to be captain of Bendel Insurance that won the FA Cup in 1972.
I can see the link of the Bendel Insurance. Congratulations. May he so rest in peace.
All right, Bayo, thank you.
Thank you too.
We'll see you on Monday, by God's grace. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service, and we always appreciate you with us. And don't also forget that our conversation today is on the 2022 budget that has been presented to the joint session of the National Assembly. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll commence our conversation.